If you're ever in a theatre and you want to talk about the play where King Duncan gets murdered by Macbeth and his wife, Lady Macbeth, then be careful that you don't name the play in the theatre. You refer to it as the Scottish play. And the reason for that is that there's a great superstition among actors that if you name this play, disaster will follow, and all sorts of records, of course, have been kept of rehearsals for this play, which have brought terrible, terrible consequences and so on, because there's a great deal of calling upon evil in the play, and you can understand this. The Scottish play, because King James of Scotland had now become King of England, King James I of England, after Elizabeth's death, and King James was very interested in witchcraft, and in fact in the play there is a reference to the witches call upon references to a shipwreck, naming a ship and so on, which actually does refer back to something which happened to James and somebody in his fleet earlier in years before, and which he ascribed to witchcraft. And so the power of witchcraft in this play, and it's a very strong superstition among actors. I mean, I have been in a BBC radio recording studio recording one of my radio plays when the director, for some reason, mentioned the title of the Scottish play, and all the actors walked out. I mean, we were in the director's box behind the glass, and there they were in the studio where the sound recording was going on. But they all walked out, and he said, "But this is not a theatre." And they said, "We are performing here. If it's not a theatre, what is a theatre?" And so they had to go through the ritual of going out of the room and turning around 3 times and throwing salt over their shoulder and so on before we could carry on with the work. So it's very powerful. So now you can understand why, because there are so many moments in the play which do call upon evil and the things which they do. And late in the play, when Macbeth has suspects that his former friend Banquo knows too much about the murder of the king and decides to do away with him, he picks up this "Come, sealing night, scarf up the tender eye of pitiful day, and with thy bloody and invisible hand cancel and tear to pieces that great bond that keeps me pale." Pale because he's not covered in blood, but he soon will be, and he was, of course, on the night that he murdered the king. And so it is this daylight night, these things which are hidden in the night, the evil spirits which come out of the night. I mean, it's one of the things which perhaps, those of us who live in cities certainly have lost, isn't it? The power of darkness and the fear. I think how dark it must have been in most of the country, let alone in the countryside with the villages and so on, in the days before street lamps, when the moon wasn't shining. So good things of day begin to droop and drowse, whilst night's black agents to their praise do rouse. Night's black agents to their praise. The word prey there is P-R-E-Y. This is the prey of the hunted, from the wolf or the lion. So this is what it is. But of course it could be praise when we hear it, praise as in adulation. Night's black agents to their praise do rouse. Very interesting when you look at the way it's written and the way that we hear these words in there. Earlier in the play, it is Lady Macbeth who calls in the most horrendous way upon the evil spirits to possess her. "Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe, top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood. Stop up the access and passage to remorse. Stop up the access to remorse," the passageway to remorse, to feeling sorry, to feeling any sort of sensitivity towards the evil which they are planning. She calls upon the evil spirits to block this passageway to remorse. And she finishes that speech, "Come, thick night, and pull thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife sees not the wound it makes."